And at first, the peace agreement implementation seemed to be working. There was a significant drop in violence in 2017, Colombia's safest recorded year since 1975. However, there was a very significant change in direction in 2018 with the election of Iván Duque as the new president. He is a protégé of Uribe. He ran on a platform of dismantling parts of the agreement, particularly in relation to political participation by the FARC and the work of the HEP. And since his election, he has systematically attempted to undermine the HEP, despite it being recognised by the international community and, most importantly, by the victims of the conflict, as a way to provide truth, justice and reconciliation for victims of all sides and an end to the impunity that has operated for decades. And this has resulted in a significant stalling of the process that is threatening the very existence of the peace agreement. We are the largest second investor in Colombia after the United States, and as penholder to the peace agreement, we play a particular role in this process. The UN Security Council warned on the 16th of April this year that the peace process, and I quote, stands at a critical juncture. All of the sections of the peace agreement are crucially important, but I just want to focus a few remarks on three of them: ending the conflict, political participation and the role of the HEP. 1/3 of the peace agreement's 578 stipulations have not even begun to be implemented, and an estimated 1,700 former guerrillas have returned to armed struggle. And the arrival of President Duque here in London yesterday is very timely, and I know that the Minister is meeting the President later today. So I hope that, as well as me, many members on this side will have questions that the Minister and issues that the Minister can raise with President Duque when he sees him. So on the armed conflict, since the signing of the agreement, Colombian human rights organisations estimate that 591 social leaders have been assassinated, and 236 of these have happened in the 10 months since the President took office.
Grateful for Honourable Friend for giving way, and she will know that I went on delegations to Colombia in 2007 when Uribe was still in power, and in 2012, and we heard widespread evidence of human rights abuses. And I'm really disappointed to hear that slow progress has been made with the peace process. Does she agree with me that it's time for our government to step up and to work with human rights defenders to bring about a country-specific plan to protect human rights defenders in Colombia?
My honourable friend is absolutely right, and one of the questions I have for the Minister is around the help that we have been giving to the Colombian government and to their sort of Department of Justice about training their lawyers around investigation and disclosure, and why that doesn't seem to be working, because impunity continues. An estimated 135 former FARC combatants have been murdered since they laid down their weapons in the disarmament process. One of the most recent victims was Dimar Torres, who is alleged to have been murdered by Colombian soldiers, and the local community then found his body next to a recently dug grave, raising suspicions that the soldiers were attempting to disappear his body, which is what we've seen over years and years and years prior to the signing of the peace agreement. A recent statement by the UN Special Rapporteur on extrajudicial executions and the UN Working Group on Enforced Disappearances has urged the Colombian government to, and I quote, cease inciting violence against demobilised individuals of the FARC and to meet the guarantees that were made to them during the negotiations in Havana, most importantly, respect for the right to life. Yet the minister responsible for peace implementation, Emilio Archila, reacted to this by responding that the statement was, quote, badly intentioned, unquote, and rejected their conclusions. Former President Uribe attacked the UN on his Twitter account. This all follows New York Times revelations in late May that the army has reinstated orders to soldiers to show results, so performance-related pay and results in the killing of armed groups. It's a chilling reminder of the military's involvement in the false positives scandal under Uribe's administration, during which thousands of civilians were murdered by the military and then presented as if they had been guerrilla fighters killed in combat, dressed up in army fatigues. After a huge outcry, the Ministry of Defence in Colombia said they would amend the orders, but concerns obviously still remain. And last week, the Senate voted to promote General Martinez Espinel, despite him being second in command of a brigade accused of murdering 23 civilians between 2004 and 2006 in that particular method. Recently, the Colombian government have claimed that there's been a 32% reduction in killings of social leaders, but this is in direct contravention of the evidence from the many reports of human rights organisations on the ground. Uribe recently said that 5,000 FARC members had returned to the mountains. This is a coded reference to them taking up arms again. But this is a completely fake claim. There is no evidence to substantiate it. It's not supported by anyone involved in the monitoring of the peace process, and it's a deliberate strategy by Uribe, who is the figurehead of President Duque's party, to undermine implementation of the peace process and the UN verification mission. And I think, in turn, that undermines Britain's role as the penholder for this agreement. And yesterday, at his presentation at Canning House, President Duque made no reference to human rights abuses and the targeting of social leaders in Colombia.